Got it. There.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Christina. I am a naturopath as well as a carnivore, and I'm doing a whole range of different interviews at the moment, one of which is essentially called Conversations with Carnivores, where we sit and talk with other people who have been carnivore and ask them all of the questions that we want to know the answers to. So today I have been joined by the amazing Chris. So welcome, Chris, to the channel. And let's get to know you a little bit. So the first question that I have for you is, what started you on this journey of carnivore? Because it's not one that most people go on.
Yeah, it started off not actually being for me. My partner was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and they said it was either Crohn's, colitis, or a combination of both. And she was supposed to go to have colonoscopy to have it all confirmed. And I started looking online for things that might help, because they basically told her that whichever one it was, or if it was both, regardless, it was a degenerative autoimmune disease that was never going to go away and could only really be managed with medication, but would just get worse over time. So I started doing a bit of research and inevitably stumbled on carnivore. And at the time, my BMI was over 45, my cholesterol, resting heart rate, and blood pressure were all through the roof. I was taking medication for all of it, and it was only ever getting worse. And I'd read that people could lose weight on carnivore, and it was like, oh, it's not going to hurt. So if we both do it together, we might both get something out of it. But I am really, really skeptical about everything. I've always kind of gone the scientific route for things. And it just seemed too good to be true.
Yeah.
Because you read about people, they're telling you that they've reversed type 2 diabetes, they've got rid of symptoms of diseases that there aren't cures for, to the point where they have the disease, but they don't have any symptoms. So what's the difference? People are eating fatty food and losing weight. And none of it makes any sense when you work on the conventional wisdom that if you eat fatty food, you get fat and your health deteriorates. But I thought, look, we'll give it a try for a couple of weeks and see what happens. And the first thing that happened for me was on probably the third day, on the third night, my partner Kath was waking me violently by shaking me because she thought I was dead.
Oh, wow.
Because for the first time in our entire relationship, I wasn't snoring.
I had a similar experience with my husband, actually, where I was like, I can't tell if you're asleep or not, because you're not making all of the type of noises.
Yeah. And that was one of my many things I had wrong with me, was sleep apnea, and it's never come back.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And the things that followed that were, that was before I even started to lose weight. In the first 18 months, I lost 60 kilos. And once I got to that point, I started going to the gym and exercising, and I've kind of stopped losing weight. I do lose weight a little bit. I actually put a bit of weight back on because I was building muscle. Yeah, but so that was the first thing that went. And when I started to sleep properly, which it eventually occurred to me I just hadn't been doing, like I probably not for years, because I'd always had sleep apnea as long as I'd known. I was always exhausted. I suffered really badly from depression. I was medicated for that, which only helped just kind of smooth out the highs and lows. But it hadn't gone away for years, really. I discovered that started to lift. Brain fog was going. I was starting to wake up earlier and earlier every morning. Now I wake up most mornings at 5 a.m.
Yep.
Which was unheard of. But because I'm getting better sleep in less time, because I'm going to sleep, I'm staying asleep. I used to have to get up 3 times a night to pee because I wasn't fully asleep. You never relaxed enough to get into a deep sleep, and then you're just conscious of your bladder, and you're like, oh, I need to pee again, and I get up and go pee, come back to bed, but I'm not sleeping. So then all of a sudden that changed. Within the first 3 months, I weaned myself off of my antidepressants. I got rid of, I have a hiatus hernia as well. From years ago, I've had that for 20 plus years. I was able to stop taking Nexium for the first time since that started. I haven't taken Nexium antidepressants. My blood pressure started to go down. My cholesterol was going down. My resting heart rate dropped like a stone. I was in my doctor's about 2.5 years ago for a checkup, which was pretty much a monthly occurrence at that point. And he was going to call an ambulance and send me to hospital because he couldn't get my resting. He couldn't get my heart rate below 130 beats per minute, even laying on a bed in the nurse's office. My heart rate's now like 65, 70. My blood pressure went from, I think at one point it was nearly 170 over 130. And it's now like 70 over 180, or whichever way, I forget which. No, I'm sorry, it's 70 over 110, I think. But it's like it's back within the normal range. My BMI is down to under 30. It's like 29 and a bit. Before I started carnivore, I couldn't walk more than maybe 400 or 500 meters without having to stop. I'm now cycling 20 kilometers into work. And
love it.
It's just, but that's mind blowing to me. If I could go back 2 years and tell me from 2 years ago that this would be the changes, I wouldn't believe me. It's been not just life changing, but life saving. I think would probably be a better idea.
I'm with you there. I think it's life saving for sure.
When COVID hit, I was petrified because of my
you had all the risk
and
factors.
all my comorbidities, and I'm like, if this thing gets me, and this was before the vaccine, and the first year of COVID, my sister got it, and she ended up on life support in an ICU for 11 days. And she was the only person in the ICU that came home. And she had to watch people doing Skype calls with their family before they were intubated, and then watch them gasp their last breath. And then, like, after several days of that, she had to do the same thing and Skype her husband. And she didn't think she was coming back. And she was very lucky that she did. Her husband was literally in the next ward in the hospital and had to Skype her because they couldn't see each other. But this was before the vaccine came out. And she's a palliative care healthcare worker, so she had all the
knowledge,
like a knowledge and like a pulse oximeter and blood pressure monitor and stuff. So she was monitoring them both at home. And when he deteriorated, she got an ambulance for him. And then the next morning, she got herself an ambulance. This was in the UK. But yeah, that was over Christmas the first year. So Christmas and New Year, she spent, they intubated her Christmas Eve. And it was the first week in January before she woke up. So that
So was this,
petrified me.
I'm just curious, was this all happening before you started carnivore or after you started carnivore? Like, where were you in regards to that, that time-wise?
I actually started carnivore in the November of that Christmas.
Yeah.
And then in December, she got sick and then was hospitalized.
Yeah.
And I lost, I think, 11 kilos in the first 2 weeks.
Whew.
But like when you
Thank
start,
goodness for testosterone. Testosterone
Yeah.
makes that happen. Women don't have that privilege, I wish.
that was actually the other thing. I had really, really low testosterone. The doctor told me it should be, I don't know what the measurements are exactly, but he said it should be around about 10 for someone in their 40s, and mine was 2. And I was having testosterone injections to try and build that up.
Yep.
So yeah, so like a fifth of what it should have been. But that, again, out the window. The only time I've been to the doctor in the last 2 years is for a checkup. And he's a bit kind of pragmatic about it. He always says, I don't know how this is working for you. But I've seen your blood tests and I can tell you that it is. So keep doing it and come and see me in 6 months. And like every time I see him, he's like, how?
Yeah.
But I mean, he's not a nutritionist. He's just kind of a regular GP and doesn't get too into it. But like he knows from what he knows it shouldn't work, but he's looking at me and he can see
that it is working.
Difference in me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a couple of questions because there's a few things that you said previously, and like they relate back to questions that I often get as well. So one of the questions that I often get from people is, can I start this with high blood pressure and high cholesterol and all of those types of things? Because they've been told the whole, you need to cut down saturated fat sort of story and all of that. And they're looking at this going, oh my God, that's really going to give me a heart attack if I'm not going to have one already. And so I'm curious for you, like when you were in that early stages of deciding to do carnivore for you, did you have that thought process of like, this is going to kill me or any of that type of worry?
What I was doing was already killing me. So I figured 2 weeks wouldn't make a difference.
So you just started with the mindset of like, I'm just going to give 2 weeks a go. Is that what was the thing for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I thought whatever happens, 2 weeks isn't going to make a terrible difference one way or the other. I'll see how it goes. After 2 weeks, I'll look at it. I don't even know if I can just not eat fruit and veg and carbs for 2 weeks. I'd done keto before, so I figured it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
And I really kind of fell into it. My partner struggled a lot. She's got diabetes as well as having the autoimmune thing. But for the time that she's done it, it's worked really well for her. She got her diabetes under control. The whole thing with her started, she got salmonella poisoning. And because of the autoimmune, which was undiagnosed at that time, she ended up in the hospital for a week because of the salmonella. It threw her diabetes out of whack, on top of everything else, which is always kind of a confounding factor.
Yeah, salmonella can do all sorts of funky things for your body. Like I know for a lot of people who say a celiac, that often journey of them discovering that they're celiac or being kicked into gluten intolerance really starts with a bout of salmonella.
So when she's able to kind of stick to it, she does well, but diabetes is not a fun thing to live with, and cravings and stuff.
Yeah.
Next level. It's
Have
easy for
you?
me because I don't have any of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious if you've shared any of my sort of journey with her, because I started my fasting blood glucose was 21.1 when I first started, and as an alternative health practitioner, I was looking, going, do I put my money where my mouth is and actually just do the work that I need to do, or do I go on medication? And I chose the pathway of like, I'm going to make a radical change and be responsible for this. But certainly I can understand if I let in a little bit of sugar or a little bit of anything that's kind of really sweet, that the sugar cravings are there. But I've gone from 21.1 down to my fasting blood glucose this morning was 6.0. So I'm not completely there yet. I want to get into the fours. But that's 6 months of time getting there. And occasionally I'll hit a 4.9, but it's not my everyday blood glucose just yet.
Yeah, we've tried a few times, but one of the things I have found with carnivore is that you can't kind of force people into it if they're not ready for it. I tried very much with my sister. My mum's looked at sort of the progress I've made, and she was on the edge of her seat for a long time with my sister when she was sick, and we've all got similar kinds of health problems. We're sort of she's a bit older than me, but she just missed her fruit and veg too much, and couldn't do it. And it's not for everyone. I'd love to get her on it. I did try, but
I think a big part of it is the mental game, and I'm curious about your thoughts on what that's been like for you. But I think a big part of like going carnivore is the mental game of like what you're doing is radically different to what the most of the population is doing. It's radically different to what most of us have been brought up with. So the diets that we've been told for since ever we were kids, that you've got to have like 5 vegetables and 2 fruits and all of that type of stuff is radically different. And it's not just, okay, I'm going to eat differently. It's like, how do you eat when you go out with friends? Like when you haven't organized yourself and you're on the fly and you're walking down the street and you're like, oh, I'm hungry, and there's 10 takeaway stores. What do you do? And how do you eat and how do you think? And, there's a lot of social interconnections that we have and emotional connections that we have with food as well. And sometimes it's really the mental game of reprogramming and challenging our thinking and asking the question of like, is this actually going to help me right now? Or is it actually going to make whatever I'm experiencing now worse? And I'm curious, did you have any of those mental challenges for yourself?
Not really. It was probably one of the few people that COVID helped with, because nobody was going out anywhere in the beginning. And then once I was into it, it became normal. I had that kind of, the first 2 weeks was kind of struggling to figure out how I was going to make it work. I had, someone had warned me about a thing where you'll get like a feeling of loss. And that happened about 2 weeks in, and I just felt like I was never going to love food again because I was just eating to exist. And food was always my addiction. I used to drink. I don't anymore, but I used to drink. But I never had the compulsion to drink. I have in my 20s I smoked, but it was only ever socially, and I never had the compulsion to smoke. But put a plate of food in front of me, and that's my poison. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I feel like growing up there was always the incentive and encouragement to always clean your plate as a kid. And my mum always used to say that there's starving children in Africa, you need to eat your food and be grateful that you've got a full plate, or you won't get any dessert if you don't eat your dinner. And I think that kind of psychologically got stuck in me. And I used to get upset if other people left food on their plates.
Oh, wow.
Like just quietly in my head, I would see food on people's plates and I'd be like, oh, that's wasteful. You can't do that. And
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't say anything, but I would take the plate away and I would finish it off quietly in a corner somewhere. And I got fat the same way we all do, one meal at a time,
Yeah.
one bit of overeating at a time, day by day, all these little tiny bits that you rationalize to yourself, oh, it's just one burger, or it doesn't matter. But every single meal matters. And
Yeah.
it's the little things that add up to the big things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to that 2-week mark, it felt like I was losing my passion for food and that I was never going to enjoy food ever again. It felt like a genuine loss, that thing in the pit of your stomach you get where like someone's just rung you and a family member's died or something like that.
Yeah.
And you know that you're not going to feel that person again. It sounds weird saying it like that.
Yeah. But it's true,
But-
like, and I think that that's authentic, and that's what we want to talk about for
Mm.
people, so that they can, they can go, oh, I remember Chris talked about this, and now I'm going through it.
So it was one of the carnivore Facebook groups had said that this might happen, and to just take have your favorite meal ready to go. So I got a big fat steak and some prawns and some garlic butter, and I just made a big, really nice slap-up meal, and we sat. And my partner Kath had exactly the same thing at the same point, and we were talking about whether we could keep doing it or not. And I said, no, they told me about this. So have a nice dinner. So we sat down, we had a nice candlelit dinner, absolutely stuffed ourselves. Settled down for the night, went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and it was like a weight had been lifted. And since then, it's just gone from strength to strength. There's been milestones, but after that point, it started to become normal.
Yeah.
And not long after that, I'd been kind of keeping myself away from other food. And we've got a family, so like everybody has to cook. And I started making family meals for the kids again. And I was okay with it. And I didn't get the temptation to eat other people's food that I shouldn't be eating.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to a point where I quite often do a 2 or 3 day fast. Just apparently the autophagy helps with loose skin, amongst other things, and just kind of resetting your internal everything. So I've been doing that, and like I'd be 3 days into a fast and cooking dinner for everyone else that I knew I couldn't eat, and it was surprising how okay I was with it, because I thought I'd be like ravenous, but kind of after the first day you don't really get hungry. You get little moments, but you just have a drink of water and it goes away. And yeah, so that was good. And again, there have been milestones, but after that 2-week mark, it started to become my normal routine. During the week now, most days I only eat one day in the evening. So once a day in the evening.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm cycling, I might have lunch as well, just for a little bit of an energy boost. But I've had no trouble with energy. I have so much energy, it's ridiculous. And just,
I love that. I just want to point out what you're saying there with like having so much energy that it's ridiculous, because like our current diet culture is eat less food, move more, right? That's the current diet culture that we actually have, is eat less calories, move more, so that you've got a difference in expenditure. But for a lot of people who are in that space of exhaustion, the moving more part is really hard when you don't have the energy. And so for me, I kind of focus on, let's get the food stuff right, and then allow yourself to get to the point where you've got an overflow of energy that you have to go do some physical exercise because you have too much of it. I'm curious, is that kind of been a little bit of your experience?
In the beginning, everything, I think, not just carnivore, but probably throughout my whole life, it's always been the reasons why I shouldn't do stuff that drive me.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a bad back. I shouldn't. I can't exercise. Or
Yeah.
I've got a sore ankle, or my knees hurt, or I can't go for a walk. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I just had to change my mindset into stopping giving excuses for why I couldn't or shouldn't. And in the beginning, when I first started exercising, I found that if I just ignored myself and did it anyway, that was the hardest bit, was getting up and saying, I'm actually going to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not happy about doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And to just force myself out the door. And I joined a gym. And that first day going through the door, being old and fat and just not looking like literally everyone else in the gym, I was really self-conscious. And I actually spoke to a personal trainer there, and he said, look, you've already done more than 90% of the people out there just by stepping through the front door.
Yeah.
And he said, it's going to be hard in the beginning, but just keep at it. And I remember the first day I tried to do a squat and fell over.
Oh, wow.
Like I was really, really unfit. And the last time, it's actually been a while since I've been to the gym because I've been concentrating on the cycling. But the last time I did a squat was with 50 kilos on my shoulders. And I did.
I love that comparison. First day I fell over. Now I can do it with 50 kilos.
And they literally gave me the empty bar with no weights on it. And I did a squat and fell over. Like first one, lost my balance. And then I was doing 50 kilo reps with the weights. There's actually a video on my Instagram of me doing that. And just seeing the difference for me was knowing that it didn't take much to go from not being able to do it at all to doing a respectable amount of actual proper physical training and getting myself fit. And then I bought a bike at Christmas and started cycling into work.
How was that the first day you did it?
I had an old bike and I had been doing some cycling, and I'd been on the bikes at the gym a few times. The first day was really a lot less bad than I thought it was going to be, because it had been a couple of months since I'd been on a bike, but I had been walking. So it's like an 18-minute walk from home to the train station, then the ride in on the train, and then it's about 18, 20 minutes again at the other side into the city to work. So I've been doing that, and that on the way in and on the way home was working out to be about 6 or 7 kilometers on its own.
Yep.
And then I started going for a walk at lunchtime at work. And I built that up from another 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers at lunchtime, just around the city, just doing a big loop. So I was walking like 12, 14 kilometers over the course of a day, eventually. And I started off again 2+ years ago, 2.5 years ago. Kath asked me to meet her at the train station. I hadn't been able to work just for various health reasons. I've got a thing called NDPH, which is essentially a permanent headache. it goes from, it changes in the type of headache that it is. Some days it's like a tension headache, other days it's a migraine. Some days I just have like a massive jaw ache or a pain in the back of my head or my neck. But it's been there since the it's coming up for February the 5th was the first day it came on, which will be 3 years ago next week.
Yeah.
So I've just had this permanent thing, which made everything else worse. Depression and just my inability to even want to go and do things. Some days I would just have to spend the day, like, sleep in a dark room with something over my eyes. So Kath had asked me to meet her at the train station, and I got 400, maybe 500 meters, and I had to stop and just wait for her to come to me and then walk home again. And then that was me done for the day. That was as far as I could walk.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've gone from that to 12, 14 kilometer walks over the course of a day. And then starting the bike rides. I got the bike on the 13th of January, it was delivered. And the first week I did 115 kilometers in total. And I've done nearly 250 now in 2 weeks.
You're getting your money's worth out of this bike.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But over time, I'll be saving money on the train anyway, because the training to work every day is $200 a month. So I'll be saving that. I might not cycle every day, but it'll definitely add up.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious about a couple of things. One of which is, have you noticed that the headaches and stuff have changed? So have they decreased, made life more, or you've just got better at managing them?
It's more that, to be honest. Because I don't have everything else wrong with me, I'm just able to manage it better. I think it's probably got worse over time, but my ability to cope with it, because I'm not coping with everything else.
Yeah.
Because the depression isn't there, and because I'm able to exercise and get out and do stuff. When I started exercising, I noticed that when you exercise once, afterwards you ache and you don't want to do it again. If you keep exercising, it doesn't get any worse. So the way you feel after 3 days of constant exercise, or 3 days of going to the gym or cycling or whatever, isn't any worse than it is after the first day. And it's easy to, after the first day, to go, oh, I just don't want to do it. But once you start again, the aches and pains go away when you start moving. And then at the end of that day, you're not any worse than you were at the end of the first day. So what's the point in stopping? You can just keep going.
Yeah.
And when I was at the gym regularly, we were going probably 4 or 5 times a week, for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, doing like a proper routine that my trainer had sorted out. He has like an online app, and it just gives you repetitions of what to do. And then because he doesn't even need to be there, you just have it on the phone. And then you kind of have a session with him once a week. And he sort of sees how you do and then adjusts it a little bit to sort of suit you better and that kind of thing. But just keeping going was, and the realization that it got, once I started, keeping going wasn't making things any worse. It wasn't making my headache worse. It was as bad as it was going to get, regardless of whether I was exercising or not. So I might as well just keep exercising. I'm pushing past that initial, oh, everything hurts, to the, well, actually, if I keep going, it doesn't hurt anymore. So I might as well keep going, and at least I'm getting a benefit out of it. I mean, cycling into work after the third consecutive day, it gets a little bit harder because your body hasn't had that much time to recover.
Yeah.
But it's definitely manageable. You just kind of keep pushing, and even when your brain tells you that you should have a day off, just keep doing it. And it just, the realization that it doesn't get any worse when you keep going was a big driving factor of keeping going, and just not listening to myself saying, oh, just go in on the train today, don't cycle in. And it's 20 kilometers and it takes me an hour. So average speed of 20 kilometers an hour, give or take. And
that's a pretty decent ride on a daily basis.
Perth is fairly flat. There's a few hills. There's 3 that I've given an F scale to, which is how many times I say the F word on the way up.
I love it.
And there's one that's a good 6 Fs. And it actually gets steeper at the top as well, which makes it even worse.
Oh no.
But like a 3F you can get up if you get a good run up to it. But the 6F is like you're in the lowest gear and you're standing on the pedals to get up the hill, and it's pretty severe.
Hard work.
Yeah. I was thinking I should put up signs just to let people know how many Fs the hills are.
I love it. There could be a whole blog post there of like which hills are there, how many Fs. You could do a whole app, I'm sure. So one of the other things that I wanted to come back to for you was, like, you mentioned about depression, and I know that that's something that a lot of people suffer from and struggle with for long periods of time. I'm curious, what was your experience for that? And when it came to carnivore, like, how quickly did you start to see or notice some changes there?
I would say probably after about the first month. I was very tentative in reading too much into it in the beginning. I didn't want to sort of think, oh, well, people were right and everything's amazing, because it wasn't. It was still there, but it had started to lift. I'd had depression in the past. I've struggled keeping a good job. I work in IT, so I get paid a decent amount. But when I came to Australia, it was the start of the mining crash. And I came over and was really struggling to get work. I ended up having to do FIFO IT work.
Yeah.
So I was doing 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And when you're kind of borderline suffering from depression at that time, that's something that will push you over the edge. And I got to spend my first Christmas in Australia watching my kids open their presents over Skype, which was not great. I did that for 6 months, and I just had to stop. I couldn't do it anymore. And I went from sort of short-term contract to short-term contract with too many breaks in between to make it financially stable. And that made the depression worse, struggling to pay the bills and that kind of thing. And then it ended up, my wife and I ended up splitting up pretty badly. And I got more work. Things actually started to improve a little bit. And I was in a job in the city, which was actually paying really well at the time, and should have become a permanent position. And I woke up one morning, again, February the 5th, with a stonking headache. Threw some paracetamol into me, went to work. I got to 10 a.m. and it was so bad. I was on the floor in the toilet at work throwing up.
Oh gosh.
From the pain. And I managed to clean myself off. I got an Uber home, and that was the last day I worked for over 2 years, because the headache had got so bad and just never went away.
Mm-hmm.
I went to 3 different doctors. I went to the ED one day out of desperation, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a tension headache." I've had it a week. What? How long is it supposed to last? And they're like, "Oh, it'll be fine." And I eventually, after about 3 months, I got in to see one of the top neurologists in Perth, who I won't name for fear of libel. And he said, "Yeah, you're too fat, and I can't do anything for you until you lose weight, because it could just be because you're too fat. You need to
That's
lose
helpful.
weight."
Thank you so much for that. Did he tell you how to lose weight, or give you any support, or any of that type of stuff?
No, the only weight I lost seeing him was $440 worth
of your
weight
wallet
that it cost to see the guy. And yeah, and that was like, oh, great. So, I mean, I've lost weight now, and it hasn't made it the slightest bit of difference. But so I saw so many different people, and none of them really were able to help. And I've just kind of learned to live with it now. It's there all the time. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's less bad. It always lets me know when the weather's changing, which is great. So I know when it's going to rain, so I can get the washing in. But yeah, it's been a ride. I've lost track of what I was saying now.
We're focusing on the depression. Like, when did that start to go for you?
So by the 3rd month, I'd been reducing my medication sort of steadily, and I'm pretty sure it was the end of the 3rd month I'd stopped taking it altogether.
Yeah.
And it was probably another couple of weeks or more before I felt like it was kind of gone, maybe even a month before I felt it was kind of out of my system. The one thing that took the longest to go was, since I'd started taking the antidepressants, I got really bad motion sickness. I couldn't ride on a bus without feeling like I was going to throw up. It was really difficult just to be a passenger in a car. If I wasn't driving, I would get queasy just being in a car. And that took probably 6 months to go. But that's gone now as well, which is good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so probably 3 months is probably the milestone of getting rid of them for good, and that's nearly 2 years ago now.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Yeah. And again, literally the only time I'm in the doctor at all in the last 2 years is for checkups. And he gives me the thumbs up, and I go on my merry way.
Keep going. You're doing all right. I don't know how it works, but just keep going.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he's not judgy about it. Because I know a lot of doctors can be, but he's like, he can see the results, and he's not arguing with those.
Yeah.
And all he can go by is looking at my blood work and the weight loss and my overall health, and the fact I'm not taking any medication anymore. And he sees the laundry list of stuff I was taking for blood pressure, cholesterol, the Nexium, the antidepressants, Like I was rattling around like a pill bottle.
Yeah.
And now sometimes I'll take paracetamol if I have a bad day. It doesn't really make a difference with my headache. Nothing does. Nothing puts a dent in that. But like if I get like a bad back or something, I had I ruptured 2 discs in my spine 10 years ago, and 6 months of enough medication to put down a horse, and they had to do fusion surgery. So they took out 2 discs completely, and they apparently they scrape out bone and bone marrow from the area, and they make some kind of a paste and squirt it in the gap. I've got titanium rods and screws that were holding it in place, and then the paste turns into bone over time. Over the course of about 2 years, so now I have where 3 vertebrae where it's just one big long one with rods and screws holding it together. But it gives me a little bit of grief every now and again, but a lot less now that I'm not carrying around 60 extra kilos.
Yeah, of course, of course. So another question that I have, and it's one that I kind of get all the time. You've mentioned the kids a little bit. Did you guys make a decision for your children whether you would change their diet at all, or whether they've kind of just you've improved it, or like what decision did you guys make around the kids?
Well, we've my partner has 3 daughters. They're in the late teens, early 20s. My 2 are 9 and 11, and they spend most of the time with their mum. They come here for the weekends and school holidays and stuff. Everyone else is non-carnivore. I'm not going to push that onto them if they don't want it. Then, but I mean, they're happy to. Nobody argues with a steak. So everybody loves the odd steak, but it's still just cooked normally for them, and they're happy. So, but they've seen the difference in me, so they know it's working for me. And it's if they want to change, they can. But
So the other question that I'm curious about, first of all, I want to give people an opportunity that are hearing your story and would love to connect with you or reach out to you to do that. Are you okay with people doing that? Like if they come find you on Instagram,
yeah, sure.
and I'll put all the links below for all your stuff as well. But are you happy for them to reach out and go?
Definitely, yeah. I'm not pushy at all. In the beginning, I was. Sorry. In the beginning, when I saw what a huge difference it was making, I got very preachy, and it's definitely something I regret. Especially when you see on a lot of the carnivore groups, everyone's like, "Oh, you have to eat like grass-fed Wagyu A5 ribeyes, and you can't eat anything else because that's wrong, and it's not pure carnivore." And just let people do what they're going to do. When my first 2 years, well, my first probably year and a half, I was very, very low budget carnivore. But I made it work, and I was just as carnivore as I could afford to be. So I would trawl my way through kind of the discount meat section of stuff that was going off in like a day or two, and that would just go straight in the freezer, and I would just have that, whatever it was, everything from random weird looking bits of brisket that hadn't sold on time and got thrown in a freezer somewhere in the shop. We're near a place called Avon Meats that's like a wholesale butcher, and they have like a 50% off freezer bin where stuff had like a day or 2 left, and they stick a sticker on it and throw it in the freezer. Everything else would be fresh except for this one little bin. So I'd kind of be diving in there for stuff and getting like half price meat. But like on the weekends, we'd have like a fried breakfast for everybody, and I make like McDonald's type sausage patties where you get like beef sausage meat and just squish it flat into a burger shape.
Yep.
And we just have that as part of a like bacon, egg, little sausage burgers, and the kids would make McMuffins, like a homemade one. And like I'll eat those and just not worry about it. And it hasn't made. It probably would make a difference if I was doing like a full lion diet and only having water and steak for the last 2 years. I'm sure my carnivore journey would have been very different, but at the same time, it wasn't. That's not something that's sustainable for me. And I always tell people that the diet that works for you is the one that you can keep doing.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford to eat steak and you can only afford cheap cuts of meat, if you have to color outside of the lines a little bit, it's a lot better than not being able to do it at all.
I'm with you there. Like, you know, I have a family of 7 children and we've got to eat what we can eat in regards to finances. Like, we do all have our own parameters, and there's lots of different things. Like, I work with people in all sorts of different spaces. So I work with truck drivers as well. And for them, you know, they're on the road a lot. They can't always go in and buy a steak somewhere. You know, they've got to make choices, and they make the best choice that they have available to them, but they still get results. It might just be slightly a different amount of time that you get those results in, but it still works.
If I'm picking something up that's in a packet, the first thing I do is flip it over, look at the carbs, look at the of which sugars, which is part of the carbs thing. And if I see sugars above 3, I won't go near it. If I've got a choice between 3% and 1%, I'll go for the 1% every time. And if it's more than 3, I'll just leave it and look for something else. But that's worked pretty well for me. I know it's probably not part of the carnivore Bible, but you have to do what you can with the money you've got, and when you don't have a lot of money, your options are limited.
Exactly. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're out and you haven't got anything to cook with, and you're stuck and you need something to eat, I'd like go and grab a pack of Kranskis or something, and just make sure that they're not ones that have got a lot of carbs in. Just keep it as low as possible. So I guess it's more semi-ketovore, where I'm not eating fruit and veg or anything, but
yeah, I still would count that as carnivore. My thought process is that it really depends on a multitude of things. Like, 1, how much finances you have, but 2, like what your health is like. So I have some people that are super sensitive, and they're already buying the organic stuff of everything that they're buying. So they're just going to replace that with meat instead of buying all the fruits and vegetables that they're buying. But they've got actual health conditions that push them into that, which is what I think about the Lions diet as well, is that majority of people that move into the Lions diet is because their health conditions are so desperately altering their life that there is no other option for them. I don't know that many people actively choose to just do the Lions diet versus like, you know, a less strict version of carnivore where life is a little bit more accessible. And I think, you know, your finances, your health, you know, where you started from, where you're going, all kind of dictate on how that looks for you, and that can look different for everyone. But the parameters of it are roughly the same.
You've got to do what works for you, and that's very much an individual choice.
Yeah. I have another question for you. So, like, you know, we're talking about, you know, some of the things that you personally do. I'm curious, if you had to give somebody who's starting out on carnivore some advice and some tips on like what things really worked for you, what things really helped for you, and if you could go back and do it again, what would those things actually be?
In the beginning, the most important thing is probably prep, because you fall off the wagon when you haven't got something you can just grab and eat. I used to make, I'd boil up eggs, hard-boiled eggs. I do the 10-minute method, where you start off with a heap of eggs in a pan of cold water, bring it up to the boil. Once it starts to boil, stick the lid on, turn the heat off, leave it for 10 minutes, and then drop them in ice water. And they come out just perfectly cooked every time. You literally can't go wrong with it. And the ice water means that they slip out the shells really easily. And I would do like a whole heap of eggs and throw them in pickling water.
Yep.
And it's like one third white vinegar, 1/3 water, and if you want to put any kind of peppercorns or anything in there just to season it up a little bit. They'll last in the fridge for months. So get a big jar, do that, and you can just like 3 or 4 eggs and you're full up. And that takes away any hunger cravings. I started making my own jerky as well. You can go to Kmart. They have a dehydrator for like 40 or 50 bucks.
Yep.
And just get some beef. I always use flank steak. It's a cheaper cut. It's got a little bit of fat in it, but not much. And it's really easy to cut into strips. Season that up however you want. Throw it in the dehydrator, and that keeps out of the fridge for weeks. And that, again, beef jerky and hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, we've just frozen. Are we still there? Hello. While we're waiting for, yeah,
there you go, you're back. Yeah.
Good, we're back. So we just heard beef jerky, hard-boiled eggs. Anything else?
Yeah, cold cuts of meat. What else? Pork crackle. Pork crackle is a lifesaver in loads of different ways. You can use it so many different ways. I've got a butcher who just gives it to me in a plastic bag. Like, he will give me a whole plastic bag full of pork skin, and I will take it home and spend the day just cooking it off. It's so easy to make. You'll never buy it in the shop again. So literally cut it into strips, have it on a wire rack in the oven with something to catch the oil, skin side down. Just put it in the oven, in the middle of the oven at 180 for about 45 to 60 minutes, depending on your oven. And that's it. Season it with salt, pepper, garlic, whatever you want, chili if you really want. And once that's cooled, that will go in a bag, and that will easily keep for a week or two, stays crispy, just in like a big Ziploc bags full of it. And I'd make like literally 2 bags full of this stuff. And sometimes it'd be gone in a week.
I use it as crackers.
Yeah.
Like if I'm missing something crunchy, I'll use that.
Yeah. Another good one that actually goes with the pork crackle is pate.
Yep.
All I did was look online for pate recipes, and there's a few different ones, and all of them, or most of them, seem to have something non-carnivore in them, and just leave it out.
Yep.
It's liver, bit of cream, bit of butter, and seasoning. Kind of semi-cook it off, blend it up, stick it in a thing, pour a thin layer of butter on top of it to stop it going grey, and you're done. And you can use pork crackle for chips.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. And I'm not a huge liver fan, but a nice pate can be good.
Especially when you're just kind of like missing some of that crunch, I think. Like, you know, occasionally that we have things that we miss a little bit, and crunch is one of those factors for me sometimes. So pork crackle, I love that same thing too. Like I dip it in pate, I dip it in, I make like a little tuna salad, which is basically like tuna with some sour cream and some cheese, and then I'll put in like some gherkins just for a little bit of flavor in there, and then we'll use that as a dip.
If you like tuna, using blended up pork crackers for fish cakes with tuna. Yeah. Tuna, bit of cream cheese, bit of cheese, and then pork crackle on the outside. Delicious. And I'm not even a fan of tuna, and I like them. We had tuna in the cupboard one day, and I'm like, I'm going to do something with that. And made fish cakes. They were delicious.
I love it. So I'm curious, like, I'm sure people couldn't, like, if they jump on your Instagram, they'll see photos of these types of things as well.
Lots of foods, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So the other thing too is I'm curious, like 2.5 years so far, is that what I'm picking up? How long you've been carnivore for now?
Nearly, yeah. So it was November I started, so two and a bit years.
Yeah. Are you going to go back?
No, never.
Yep.
There's no, at this point, there's no downside to keeping going. In the beginning, I kind of struggled with worrying about variety and what am I going to eat and how am I going to make it interesting. But once you get to the point I'm at now, you don't really care. You're not eating that often anyway.
Yeah.
You're not having to figure out how to make 3 diverse meals every day. So most of my cooking now, I will go and find a wholesale butcher, and I will buy a big lump of meat, and I will cut it into portions. I got a sous vide stick, so I throw them in there, depending on the cut of meat. If like I've done chuck steak, and I did that for like 48 hours in the sous vide, only to medium rare, but for 48 hours, and it gets really tender.
Yeah.
And then you can throw those in the fridge or the freezer. I got, I think, 10 steaks out of a big chuck. And when I say steaks, they were like that
big
thick.
steaks, not these new ones that you're seeing in the supermarket that you go, that's paper thin. How is that a steak?
Like the steaks that Fred Flintstone would be proud of. Just like a big lump of meat on a plate. And garlic butter, and just have one of those a day, and you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
The funny I meant to say about them with cycling and only eating once a day, I found that if I want to lose weight, I have to eat more.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. But if I'm burning calories cycling, it's according to my watch, it's like 700 calories each way.
Yep.
On a 20-kilometer cycle. So I'm burning 1,400 extra calories based on not doing that, but I won't lose weight.
Yep.
And the only way I can lose weight is if I eat more.
Exactly.
It's like living in a different universe to what
it is. We live in the upside down. Like we live in the upside down.
We really do. But
but it's also, it has to do with thermodynamics and the temperatures of your body and your thyroid and all of that type of stuff. So if you're not eating enough to meet the calorie deficit successfully, then your thyroid slows down, and then you don't burn as much fuel as fast as if you eat more food. But it's part of the conversation when we look at like eat less, move more. Is that actually true? And you're proving that it's really not.
Yeah, and the people maintaining that losing weight is maths, like more calories in, more calories out, and it just doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure it does to a degree in some situations, but knowing that I'm burning all those extra calories, and if I don't eat enough, I'm not going to lose weight. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But it
has a lot to do with it does, especially when you've come from that paradigm of like, this is what we've been told. And, you know, we're looking at it from a maths problem when, you know, hormones make that all different,
Mm,
especially for women as well. And one of the
mm,
common things for women when I'm working with them is that they're under eating. That, they're
mm,
like, oh, but I'm eating a lot of food. I'm like, you're not eating enough for your hormones so that
mm,
they can balance. And then when they're happy, they'll make you
mm,
lose weight.
mm. Yeah, I mean, when you make your body hungry, it's going to hold on to what it's got as well.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. So,
But even when I'm like, I can. Sorry, I was going to say, even when I'm fasting, like I can fast for 3 days, and I wouldn't even lose a kilo.
yeah.
And then when I start eating again, that's when I start to lose weight.
Yeah. But also true, and let's talk about that for a second if you've got an opportunity. The reason that you do the fast is for autophagy benefits, for the benefits
Mm,
of regenerating, healthier cells. So when you're not eating, what's happening for those that are watching is that your body goes back and it goes, well, we've got limited resources right now. We better take care of what we've already got. And so it goes through and it cleans the cells and it, makes them healthier than they were before you started the fast. And then when you restart the fast, you go back into replicator mode where you replicate cells. And so what you're replicating is healthier versions of those cells, which is why you want to do the fasting, right? So, for the
mm,
benefits of, tightening up your skin to get better, good quality DNA, to get better, healthier cells and to regenerate and heal. So I'm curious, what started you on the fasting? Was that it? Like knowing all the stuff about
Um,
autophagy?
I didn't know that in the beginning, but it was very much worrying about loose skin and not wanting to end up with bingo wings.
Yep. How did you go on the very first fast that you did?
It worried me that it wasn't harder. The first day was I was hungry. By the end of the first day, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But it was literally just grab a bottle of water and keep it next to me the whole time. And anytime I started to even think about food or feeling hungry, take a big drink of water, and it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I'm fasting, I do still have coffee, but it's just black with no sugar. And there's like 4 calories in a cup of coffee, so I'm considering that not breaking the fast because it's coffee and coffee is life.
Yep. It's just water that's touched magic beans.
Exactly, and they are magic. So I'll have a coffee in the morning and then just water after that. And yeah, do that for 3 days. The last time I did it, I actually pushed it to 4 days just to see what would happen. And nothing extra happened, but it wasn't hard to do. And I probably could have done another couple of days if I'd really wanted to, but I thought I didn't really want to because I was missing my food. And I think the biggest problem with that 4-day one was I'd done some shopping and I knew what was waiting for me.
Yes, I hear you there.
Yeah, I probably could have gone longer if I hadn't done the shopping and didn't have steaks waiting for me.
Yeah. Okay, so with that in mind, the last question that I have for you, and we'll close up, is how do you do birthdays and celebrations? Like, that's a big one for people. They tend to go, well, what am I going to do at Christmas? What am I going to do when it's a birthday? Like, how do you do those? How do you approach them?
I'm the cook of the house anyway. So if like Christmas, everybody comes to our house and they know they're not going hungry and there's going to be lots of good meat. But I obviously do loads of side dishes and stuff for everyone else. And I just have whatever the meaty stuff is. The Christmas just gone, I bought a whole rack of pork ribs with the bone in and skin on, like, so the whole thing, and a whole brisket, and I cooked those and did a whole bunch of sides for everyone else. We had kind of a Tex-Mex style Christmas. The year before that, I did beef ribs, I think. Just loads and loads of them. And everybody had a good time. If I'm going out, I will, if I'm needing food, I will eat before I go out, and I'll be just like, no, I'm fine. And I'll just have like a drink or whatever. But yeah, if we go out to restaurants and stuff, I'll try and sort of steer it towards somewhere that does a decent steak.
Yeah.
And just leave it. Ask them if they can leave off the sides, or I'll just leave the sides on the side of the plate, so it doesn't look too weird, because people look at you weird when there's just a steak on a plate.
Yeah.
So it's easier to just sometimes just leave the sides, or go, oh, do you want my chips? And just give them to someone else. Because normally I'm with people, at least one or two people that know I'm carnivore, so they're more than happy to forage off my sides.
I love it.
So yeah, it's good to have a wingman take care of business for you. But yeah, birthdays and stuff like that, I just make sure I'm not going in hungry. And if I get stuck, I do the Macca's patties thing. Like if it's on a long car journey and I haven't planned for it or something, or if I get stuck out longer than I think I should. I don't think I've ever had that delivered the same way twice.
Same.
Yeah, so for a few patties and some cheese, and I've had them one time. They put them all in separate boxes, and the cheese in separate boxes.
Oh my God.
I've had them where it was all just in one box on top of it, and the whole just big cheesy mess. It's not that often. I don't think I've done it for probably 8 months. But if you get stuck and you're hungry, Macca's patties.
Yep.
Look for it.
I've certainly done that, because we're traveling Australia, right? And there are places where, we just got to get to the next destination. So we don't really have time to stop and shop and do all the things. So just swinging into Macca's, getting the thing, and then removing all the other stuff. But it is hilarious sometimes when they come out and you're like, how did they think that this is what it should look like?
Yeah. And if you get a new staff member, just tell them it's under the condiments menu.
It's under the condiments menu. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you find a staff member, they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. The patties, individual patties are on the condiments menu, and they'll go, oh, yeah. And then they'll know.
So I normally go through the self-checkout type of thing. So, because I'm like, then I can pull out the stuff that I don't want, and I'm not talking to a human that's going, wow, this is a weird lady.
Yeah, my stepdaughter's best friend worked at Macca's for a while, so she told us that's the trick. Condiments menu.
The trick. Good. All right, so we've been talking for a while, so I'm aware of your time and my time as well.
Oh yeah.
Is there any last things that you'd like to leave people with before we say goodbye?
If you're thinking about it, just do it. My only regret is that I didn't find it earlier. And that's something I hear a lot from other people, where they hummed and hawed, some people for months, about whether they should start it or not. There's never going to be a perfect time to start anything.
Yep.
So whatever it is, whether it's joining the gym or just going out for a walk and making it a regular thing, or carnivore or anything, just stop giving yourself reasons not to, and just do stuff. There's no shortcuts, there's no easy paths. You just have to, even when you want to lay in bed and do nothing, just force yourself to get out of bed, get out the door, go to the gym, get on a bike, go for a walk, and just keep doing it. Nothing I've done has taken more than 2 weeks to become a habit.
Yeah.
I used to have flat white with 2 sugars, and it took me 2 weeks of only having 1 sugar to get rid of that extra sugar, and then another 2 weeks to get rid of that extra sugar, and then 2 weeks of drinking black coffee and hating it, before I started to enjoy it, and now it's normal. Going for walks, it took less than 2 weeks to make it a habit. Carnivore, again, 2 weeks. Just give yourself 2 weeks on pretty much anything, and you can turn it into a habit and make it part of your regular day. And once you've done that, you can keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it gets easier after that.
Yeah, awesome. That's really good advice. Thank you so much.
That's
So
all right.
I want to say thanks for coming to talk to us, Chris. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it. And I will certainly be looking at your Instagram and getting some drooling recipes, I'm sure, from it.
Yes, it's set to private because it's only really for family and stuff. But it's at carnivore_Chris, so it's a carnivore page. I just wasn't sort of initially wanting to make it public because it's the internet and you know what people are like.
I hear you there.
But anyone that wants to put in a follow request, I'm happy to add.
Good. Thank you so much. I'm going to finish recording and then I will say goodbye to you properly.
Okay.